Hey everyone, Ken Horowitz from Sega 16 back again with another pickup video, but this one is specifically about video game books. I've been getting a lot of books recently for the research that I've been conducting for the new book that I'm writing, and I wanted to share some of them with you. A lot of them are arcade books, some of them are video game books in general, some of them are Sega books, so I thought I'd share them with you. So let's get started. The first one that I have here is called Downright Bizarre Games. This was written by Michael Thomason, who runs Good Deal Games. And this book chronicles all kinds of weird games that you probably never thought you'd hear of. Kind of books that don't make the front page of most video game magazines. A lot of publicity, weird stuff like it. Colibri. A lot of odd games. You know, the Journey arcade game. And it's really interesting because there are a lot of games in here that I either didn't know a lot about or some I didn't even know existed. But it was really interesting to get a little bit more background on some of them, like Normie's Beach Babe-O-Rama. It's a really interesting book. Really fun to read. Ninja Golf. Great game. I recommend that you pick this one up because you're bound to learn something about games that you didn't know. Another game that I got recently, another book that I got, recently is the official Coleco book. The official Coleco book. This tells the entire story of Coleco, the company, as well as the ColecoVision, the Atom computer, and what happened to them afterward and everything. And this doesn't really have anything to do with what I'm writing, but when I found out about this book, I mean, ColecoVision was the first console my parents bought for me. I'd owned an Atari 2600, or I played Atari 2600 before, but I didn't own any consoles. The first console my parents bought specifically for me, for my brother and me actually, was the ColecoVision. It came with Donkey Kong, we had Donkey Kong Jr., we had Venture, and we had Smurf. And so I loved the ColecoVision, and I was really glad to see that somebody had written this book, because I really like to know more about the story of Coleco. The next two I'm going to put these two together. These are from Hardcore Gaming 101, and they are volumes 1 and 2 of the Sega arcade classics. And these books are basically collections of a lot of the articles published on Hardcore Gaming 101. They've been revamped, cleaned up, and expanded in many cases. And lots of screenshots, but also lots and lots of good information. The books have just about every single Sega arcade game you can think of. A lot of games that you probably didn't even know of. I was glad to see, for example, a game like Flash Gal was included here. Tough Turf. I mean, these are games that you really don't hear anything about. AB Cop. AB Cop is a great game. A great soundtrack, too. Enduro Racer, the arcade version of Enduro Racer. Really good stuff. So it was nice to see that this book, Choplifter, my book talks a lot about Choplifter, the one I'm doing now, the development and things like that. Flicky. So it's always good to, Sinbad Mystery. So it's always good to get as much information about Sega arcade games as possible. Hardcore Gaming 101, run by a great fellow I know named Kirk Collada, publishes a lot of video game books, so I recommend you check them out, especially Sega books, because you're going to learn a lot about Sega's arcade history if you do. Okay, the next book I got is from another friend of mine called named Leonard Herman, and the book is called Phoenix: The History of the Video Game Industry. Look at this. Look at the size of this thing. I mean, you can stop a bullet with this. And this covers video game history. This is the 4th edition. When it says 4, it's the 4th edition, not the 4th volume. He's been doing this book for a long time, and he periodically revises it and expands it. And there is a lot of information about video games in here, and I recommend anyone who is a fan of video game history to get themselves a copy and read up on it, because the writing is great, The information is excellent, and there is just so much covered here. I heartily recommend picking this one up. Okay, and the last two books that I got are hardcover books. This one I got off eBay. This one retails for about 45 bucks. I got it off a Goodwill auction for 8 bucks. I had no idea what condition it was in, so I said, for 8 bucks, what the hell? And it turns out it was in excellent condition. And this is a visual history of video games from 1971 and 1984. And I've been using this book along with Phoenix for the book that I'm working on now. And as you can tell, it has a lot of good imagery about these different arcade games, as well as lots of great information. These books don't tend to go into as much detail as you would like for each game, but it's because they cover so many games. Okay, but it's got all kinds of different games in here. And there's some mention of the ColecoVision. It talks about arcade ports as well. The Vector X, that was nice to see there. Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, and then it's got all these other games. Like there's Donkey Kong Jr. So it's a wonderful collection of games that of arcade games in history that I think if you can find a copy, pick it up, you will not be disappointed. I have another arcade book called Arcade Fever, and this book is in that same vein, but this one goes in a lot more detail, and it is a lot bigger as well. So I was very happy to find this book and finally get around to reading it, because I'd seen it and heard about it for a while, but I never actually got a chance to read it. I'm happy to have been able to find a copy. And the last book I got, this one I just bought. This is, I think, one of the most recent ones I got, and that is The Art of Atari. This one doesn't have anything to do with what I'm writing, but I love Atari, and I love Atari artwork. I mean, just the artwork in those cartridges and in the boxes was just insane. And it's wonderful that somebody actually went, and there's some history of Atari here, but they actually went and chronicled, you know, all the great packaging, the design. Here it talks about how the packaging and the artwork were designed. I mean, just great history on Atari. I mean, the artwork is just, look, here, there's different artists. George Opperman, you know, just really wonderful to see that somebody actually chronicled the logo, you know, coin-op cabinets. I love cabinet art, absolutely love cabinet art, and consoles, the box arts for Atari, for the cartridges, have some wonderful artwork. I mean, look at this. This is some beautiful stuff. And it was great to see this in book form. So I'm very happy to have this one as well. Adventure. And I recommend very much that if you can get a copy off Amazon or anywhere, get yourself a copy of this. I'm starting to build up a nice little collection of video game books. Maybe next time I could show some of the replay magazines and Play Meter magazines that I've been collecting, because I want to know more about the hobby, not just to inform myself, but also to write about, because I find video game history to not only be extremely interesting, but to be very neglected for the most part. So anything I can do to educate myself with these books and other sources to be able to write about them in detail is something I'm going to look to grab as every time I can. Okay, so if you want any more information on the books, let me know in the comments below, and I'll provide you links or whatever I can. In the meantime, head over to Sega16.com and check out our reviews, features, and interviews. Head over to the forum and join the community. And like us on Facebook and give us, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. And that's in the description below. And until next time, take care.